Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Let's go to the next part of our podcast. We're going to talk about concern meters. We're going to talk about various teams or players. How concerned are we? We're going to go from 1 being that we're not super concerned to 5 that we're like, yeah, we're full blown. This is not great. And we'll go back and forth. But I do want to start. Let's talk about the most obvious story right now that a lot of people are concerned about, because since the Harden trade, the Clippers are 0-5. What are we feeling, Isaac? What's your concern meter at for the LA Clippers?
You know, because it's so early in the season, I will say I'm like 3.5,
Okay.
5-ish with the Clippers, just because we've only been they've only played 10 games. So I'm gonna say they've only played 10 games this year so far. So that's why I won't give them a 5. The 3.5, the reason why I have it somewhat high is because 0-5, like you said, with Harden. And I think we talked about this the last time on the podcast, where it was like, why were the Clippers that desperate to trade most of their players for him? You know, like Batum and Covington, and they look good over there in Philly. You know, so
Yeah.
it's like, man, they traded pretty much their whole roster for James Harden. And James Harden, I saw a couple Clippers games with him in the lineup, and he just doesn't look like he cares, bro. That's very concerning from, looking at James Harden. Like, you traded pretty much your depth for this guy, and he just does not care. Granted, still early in the season, but man, they got to get it together, man. And I feel so bad for Ty Lue, man. I don't know what he can do. He's gonna have to change up the starting lineup. Somebody's gonna have to sit, because all them in the starting line is just not working, and I don't think it will.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah, we'll see what Ty does. The Nuggets game, they played the Nuggets good. Like, I don't
They
know.
did.
Yeah, I don't know how
But
much
was Jamal Murray out though?
Yeah, he was.
See, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like up in
but
the air with that one.
right, to be fair though to the situation, the Clippers are down their big man Mason Plumlee,
True, that's
which
true.
is huge when you play Jokic. Okay,
Right.
some of Ty Lue's coaching in that game. I talked to Luke about it afterwards, and it's like, the fact that you did not have Zoo out there in the last 4 minutes of the game blew my mind, just because he did a relatively good job on Jokic when he was guarding Jokic, as good as a job as one can on Jokic.
Right.
And you were having like Paul George and Kawhi and Harden guarding Jokic in the post, and he just either would throw up the shot and then somebody would get the rebound and put it back, or he would make it. They tried to hard double him. That didn't work. So I will say that they have some things to figure out, especially the center position. They recently, I guess, are going to sign Daniel Tice.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's actually a good signing.
I agree. And it's going to give them a little bit more floor spacing, because he can actually hit the three. And he's a bigger guy, which is going to help. But I think the Plumlee injury, that's one thing that, like, so the Harden trade we knew was going to be awkward. Like, let me ask you this. Do you know what the record was for the Brooklyn Nets when they started their season with their big three? To start, like, the first dozen or so games, they were 5-7.
Ooh.
The Cleveland Cavaliers, when they got together, LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, they were 5-7 when they started their first 15 or so games.
Yeah, I remember when LeBron first came back, they didn't win a lot of games in the beginning.
Right.
I remember they struggled.
Right. And so, and the difference between the Clippers and those other like power teams, those super teams, is they had the whole offseason to get chemistry and figure out how to work together. The Clippers are doing it on the fly. And when you take someone like James Harden, you could tell he's a little apprehensive, but like in the Nuggets game, you could tell he was getting a little bit more comfortable. they started out and Ty Lue's figuring things out. Like they got the ball in Paul George's
Right.
hands early in the Nuggets game, and he was on fire. They're trying to do like pick and pops with Kawhi and Harden, which got Kawhi some open shots. Granted, he missed those shots, but I think he'll get into a flow with Harden. It seems like their goal is going to be having Paul George and Russ on the floor together, and Harden and Kawhi on the floor together, which I think could work out.
That could work, yes.
Right. But it's funny to me because part of the problem with the Clippers is they're too small now since Plumlee has gotten injured. And that happened right when Harden started his first game. And I don't think that's a coincidence because their defensive rebound rating is last in the league since Harden has been playing for the Clippers.
Yeah.
Well, when you only have one center and your backup center is PJ Tucker and he's only 6'5", that's going to happen, right? But that's nothing to do with James Harden. So I'm with you. I'm at a 3. I put a 3 down. You're at 3.5. Okay. I'm at a 3. I want to still give it time. And I think when you put a piece like James Harden in and they don't have a whole offseason, and I just listened to the Bill Simmons podcast where he talked to Doc Rivers and they talk about like there's just no practice anymore. Like nobody practices.
No, there isn't. Yeah,
right.
Nobody does.
Right. So we just got to give it time now. And I know that's the hardest thing to do, especially if you're a Clippers fan or you're a Paul George fan or a Kawhi fan or a Harden fan. But that's what you got to do. You just got to be patient, give it time. The players and the coaches are all like, give us 10 games, give us 10 games. Let's give them 10 games. Let's see how it looks in 10 games. They already Bones Highland is unfortunately he was playing really great early on this year. He's now out of the rotation because they can't have that many chuckers. They have too many chuckers on the team.
Yep.
But I think adding Daniel Tice is going to help that team out because he's a big body, he's a big guy, and he can also work. He can spread the court. He can shoot threes. He's like 33% 3-point shooter or something like that. So I think that's going to help them. And then we'll see how it looks after the next 5 games.
Right. Now, I will say this to you, Ryan. Who do you think, if you're Ty Lue, right, with the game on the line, who do you think takes the last shot? I think it should be Paul George. I feel like this is Paul George's team. And I think Paul George is the one that got to be the closer. Do you think that's, correct, or do you think it should be James Harden?
Oh, well, see, I would say like this is what the beauty of having a super team should be. We always talk about like who should take the last shot. I was talking to Luke about this. Just give it to the hot hand.
Right.
Like against the Nuggets, it should have been Paul George, but they drew up a play for Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi was not
that didn't
good.
Make any sense. Yeah, right. He wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't hitting his shot. Like so.
No, he wasn't.
So to me, they should have ran like a pick and roll action because the second best player for the Clippers on the other night against the Nuggets was James Harden. Harden had a solid game against the Nuggets. So they should have ran some sort of pick and roll action with Harden and Paul George, and whoever got open, take the shot type thing. I would have tried to give it to Paul George in that situation, but let's say it's Paul George and Kawhi Leonard that's hot. We'll run them two in some sort of action. Or if it's Harden and Kawhi, like should be the best part of having like 3 really great players is like
have so many options, right?
Right. Like why do we need to pick one guy when Paul George has 35 points, Kawhi, I think he had like 17 or something like that. He wasn't that good against the Nuggets. Like, okay, Kawhi, it's just not your night. Let's get it to Paul George. Let's get him an open look. Let's run him in some pick and roll action. Let's do something like that. Instead, they ran Kawhi off of a double screen, didn't get open, and then Paul George is like, oh, great. Now he has to take a 28-footer with KCP right under his hip. It's like that's not a good shot, right?
Right.
So I'm of the mindset whoever's hot, let that person take the shot. So if it's Paul George, and right now it's Paul George. Paul George is having an amazing first half of the first 10 games of the season.
He is.
So I'm with you on that. Like if you're gonna pick right now, it's Paul George, but like go with whoever's hot.
Yeah, okay, I like that take. Now, do you think that Grizzlies loss is the worst loss for them of the year?
Well, yeah, that's one that they had like that's the one that like I could understand Brooklyn, the Knicks made sense because especially once Plumlee went down and you're playing against Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, and you're not getting rebounds. The one against the Memphis Grizzlies was just like you
That
don't want to
was,
lose that
bro, that
game.
was,
Yeah.
that, and it was at home too. So it was like, whew.
Well,
That's what made me a little concerned.
mhm.
If they didn't lose, if they didn't drop that game, I probably would have my take would probably be at a 2 for a concern, honestly. But that kind of put it up 1, honestly. So you can't lose that game with Ja out the lineup, bro. You just can't.
Yeah, they couldn't get a rebound. Bismack Biyombo was like destroying them on the boards. He had
He
like
was.
15 rebounds that game. And the other thing was, which I didn't understand, and I, again, this is just to me like Ty Lue's got to figure this out. Is
Mm-hmm. It's a tough
obviously
job for him this year.
right. Oh yeah, obviously there's going to be chemistry issues, right? But you have players like if you play a lineup with Kawhi, Paul George, Man, Zoo, and Norman Powell, those guys know each other. They have chemistry. And that's part of the reason why in that Memphis game, if you watched it, the best lineups out there was without James Harden because of the chemistry the other 5 had on the floor together. Why didn't you end the game that way? Like, I get you want to get Harden acclimated into the team, but you also have to win games. So it's, to me, Ty Lue has to consider that. And in that Memphis game, I would have not put Harden back in the game. I would have let the 5 guys
That's
that
fair.
know each other best just close the game and try to actually win it, knowing that there's chemistry issues right now because they're trying to implement Harden into the system.
Yep, man.
Yeah,
it's just so tough for Ty Lue, man, because it's
I
like
know.
if I'm in his shoes too, I'd do the same thing. I'd be like, man, I got to get James Harden. We just traded for him.
I know.
It'd be, if he doesn't use him, it's like everybody would be then questioning, well, why aren't you using James Harden? You guys traded for him.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you zig, you should have zagged. So it's just like I would hate that job. Like Ty Lue got the toughest job this year out of any coach in the NBA. Like that is a tough job. All these egos, and Russ, I think, has calmed down a little bit with his ego since his stint with the Lakers. So I think it's a little bit better. But James Harden got the biggest ego out of anybody. Paul George is still a star player in this league. And Kawhi Leonard, he's the only one that got rings. So it's like somebody got to be the leader of this team. Somebody got to be the one to make this ship sail, man, because it doesn't look like James Harden is a leader. Westbrook is just trying to rekindle his career again. So it's like, man, that's why I was saying, like, Paul George got to step up, man. You got to put on the Superman cape and just be like, give me the ball and move out the way.
And that's what helped him. Yeah, that's what helped him with the Nuggets. That's what he did. Like, right? I think, yeah. He scored like 14 points in the first quarter. Like he was just on. I think that was done on purpose too. I think they were running stuff for him right away. And then like we were talking about this again, like with Luke, I was talking about this, like, and then he got taken out of the game. He was hot. He was on fire. He taken out at the 5-minute mark. And then James Harden, there was a point where he was starting going, made a couple shots, and then Ty Lue took him out of the game because, like, I think Ty Lue's trying to get them all in this rotation, but I'm like, man, just keep the hot hand out there for a little bit. Like, let's just let them cook. Like, whether it's Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, or James Harden. But I also understand, like, you got to get the other players involved too. Like Norman Powell has to get some shots up if he's going to be effective on your team, So it's just right. It's like and you said, it's the hardest job.
Didn't they say, or didn't he say that somebody's out the lineup completely? I forgot who it was.
Bones Highland. Bones
Highland. Yeah. Nah, I don't watch too many Clippers games, but is Bones Highland? Isn't he a pretty decent player for the Clippers?
He's had a good start to the year this year. I think he's averaging like 16 points a game, like off the bench.
Oh man, and now he's just out of the rotation.
Yeah, they can't. They're too small. They're too small, and he's a chucker. He's really good at scoring, but you have Powell, Harden. It's unfortunate. Yeah,
it is, man. That's a tough job, man.
It is, and I think that by trade deadline, we could see someone moved like Norman Powell or something like that because they need more
Yeah,
forwards.
absolutely. Right.
They need more
absolutely.
forwards. So Bones could end up back in the rotation. I'm actually like sneaky, like thinking that's going to happen. I think Powell will end up being traded for a couple forwards because they need forward. They traded all their forwards. I didn't even realize that they traded all their forwards in the James Harden trade. And I'm like, what are we like? You need forwards, dude. That's what made your team so unique the last couple years, but whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, what's the next team or player you'd like to talk about? Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.